Speaking today in chapel is Mr. Jon Pactor. Pactor graduated from Wabash in 1971 and from IU Law School in 1976. He currently works as an attorney in Indianapolis. Pactor has served on the board of directors of the Indianapolis and National Associations of Wabash Men. His service to the college as an alumnus has been immeasurable. From his work as chapter advisor to the Teak House, where we're told he even has his own suite, to founding Wabash alumni benefiting and serving humanity, Wabash Day, held each October, to serving on the Dr. Tavel 1-hour optical bad referee of the day for the basketball team's annual alumni game with his son Jacob, who graduated from Wabash in 2004, giving his talk titled, "We Are Wabash Men," Jon Pactor.
Thank you for that applause. I'm glad to get the applause at the beginning of a talk because I never know what's going to happen at the end. And you know, you might do me a little bit of a favor here, and because the suspense is killing me, because I don't know what's going to happen at the end. Could I ask for a little favor and give me a good round of applause again now for the ending of my speech? Thank you. That was so unexpected. Thanks to the Sphinx Club for inviting me, and special thanks to Tyler, risking his entire legacy as president of the Sphinx Club on inviting me to the speech. A brave man. Can you imagine how brave he is? A Figam wearing a bow tie. Tremendous. Has anyone noticed that I'm wearing a red and white suit? It's seersucker, too, and that's my own choosing. I'm taking full credit for it, and I'm not taking any fashion lessons from Bill Cook, regardless of what he might say. Unfortunately, I don't have any red shoes to go with it, and I asked Professor Hurl to loan me a pair, but she didn't have a pair of my size. Sometimes your generation and mine do not speak the same language. I look at you and I say to myself, my God, did I really look as young as you? In turn, you look at me and you say, OMG, he's old. I bet he roomed with Caleb Mills. And I say, did I look as eager as you to hear a chapel speaker? And you say, I'm not eager to hear this guy. I'd rather read last week's weather forecast. And I say, did I ever dress as well as you? And you worry, in 40 years, am I going to be bald, short, and wear seersucker? Well, regardless of those differences, we are Wabash men. My class, the class of 1971, just celebrated its 40th reunion at the Big Bash 3 months ago. We called it a coming-of-aging party, and all of us were qualified for Social Security, or about to be. The Social Security, that's the government's original Cash for Clunkers program. I now see that I am part of history. My son, Jacob, class of '04, says, Dad, you're history. He's been saying it since he was 6, but now I finally see it as a compliment. A few days before the reunion, a friend asked me what I would be doing in the upcoming weekend, and I said I was going to my 40th college reunion. He replied, John, you're dating yourself. And I said, dating myself? That's what I did for 4 years at Wabash. That apparently is a Wabash tradition we don't talk about. Well, do the math. I've now spent 10 years as an alumnus for every year I spent as a student. We had it rough in the pioneer days of 1967 and through 1971. We had to make friends without Facebook. The ballpoint pen was a relatively new invention and an exciting one. I think that McDonald's came my sophomore year. We had Saturday classes. We had no women professors. There was no instant replay, no light beer, no decaffeinated drinks, no word processing. We did not realize the DePaul Swallows. They did, but it was not. They did, but it wasn't a description then in use. But the years fly by. 40 years seem to have vanished into thin hair. Okay, you can't learn everything at Wabash. I recently learned, and I'm disclosing it for the first time publicly, that I have a disease, and it's called, I may not pronounce it correctly because it's German, Witzelschluck. And this disease is marked by the making of poor jokes and puns and pointless stories, which intensely amuses the speaker. My brother didn't believe me. He got on and he found it. So you can look at it. It's a real disease. Well, anyway, don't worry. It's not contagious. However, there is a disease that you may have or ought to have. It's what I call Wabashitis. It's an acute inflammation of the spirit. It causes your blood to become redder and it makes your brain race. I have a bad case of Wabashitis, and my daughter Ellen, the class of 2006, not Wabash, but Mount Holyoke, she says I need a 12-step treatment for it. I'd probably say that I am a Wabash man. A Wabash man is a real person. Now, guys at other colleges don't refer to themselves as men. You don't hear, I am a Harvard man. The thousands of people from Harvard that I know, I deal with every day, like you do. They don't say I'm a Harvard man. And the very term DePaul man is an oxymoron. And don't ever bet on there being a real DePaul man. The odds against it are 47-0. But we are Wabash men, living, breathing, thinking, hopefully critically thinking men. And I want to discuss 10 attributes that comprise of Wabash man. I have omitted a few attributes from my discourse because I promised the Sphinx Club that I would conclude by 1 p.m. tomorrow. Our history teaches us about the attributes of a Wabash man. But I'm not giving a lecture on Wabash history, a chat on the evolution of the Wabash caveman, or a talk on the genetics of the Wally. I'm going to use our history to explain the Wabash man. Our founders established our college in 1832, and the story is that they knelt in the snow and prayed on November 21, 1832, when they founded the college. But our college was not founded on prayer, though the founders were good Christian men. Instead, it was founded by men who exhibited extraordinary selfless courage for the common good. So the first attribute for us, each of us as an individual Wabash man, and all of us together as Wabash men, is to understand and honor their courage and to parlay our own liberal arts education for the common good. We are not here at this campus to get a job, to be consumers of a product, or to be a statistic in some ranking. We are here to be good men and to do good things for the greater good. No Wabash man is an island. The two principal forefathers were Caleb Mills and Edmund Hovey. They were friends from their college days at Dartmouth, which was then, as now, a premier college in New Hampshire. Hovey is less known today than Mills, but no less essential to Wabash College. Hovey and some others wanted to start a college in Crawfordsville, and Hovey later persuaded Mills to become the school's first professor. Hovey and Mills gave up the good life in New England to come to the wilderness of the West, which is what this area was called at that time. They were not seeking wealth or celebrity. They had not made a fortune in the pizza business or invented some mass media empire and had made money to render themselves philanthropists. Instead, Hovey, Mills, and our other founders were philanthropists without money. They were idealists. We, the Wabash men of today, are sons of those idealists. I imagine the following conversation between Hovey and his wife Mary somewhere in New England around 1831. "Honey," he said, "some of us Presbyterian dudes No, he didn't use the word dudes. I'm just seeing if you're paying attention. Well, I'm not sure now. At any rate, he said, some of us are going to start a college in Crawfordsville, Indiana. The college is going to provide a classical education like Dartmouth. To graduate, the boys will be required to demonstrate proficiency in Latin and Greek, mathematics, and other traditional disciplines. This will help tame the wilderness and promote democracy there. Our entire country will be better for it. Now, I imagine her reply, probably just as my wife, Andrea, class of 1974, from American University, and what she would say in response to one of my cockamamie ideas. Right. Or she might say, going a little further, right, and I'm going to start a beauty salon in Greencastle. But I further imagine hubby's response to his incredulous wife to be as follows. Yes, honey, we are going to start this college. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. It will take guts, brains, strength, and spirit. Okay, that imagined discourse is a bit fanciful, but the essence of it probably occurred because it did take guts, brains, strength, and spirit to found Wabash College and make it work. Think of the courage of hubby and his wife. They uprooted themselves to the wilds. Where were they and the other founders going to find students, let alone students who wanted to learn Latin and Greek? There was no public school system. They didn't have money for honor scholarships. They hardly had any funds of their own. There were no alumni to make referrals. If they would find any students, how would they get to campus? There was no railroad. There was no highway to get students or anyone else to Crawfordsville in 1832. They couldn't take a steamboat down Sugar Creek. So no wonder that hubby and the other founders were kneeling in the snow. They were probably praying both for the success of Wabash College and also praying that their wives wouldn't shoot them. I have uttered that prayer many times myself. About a year after hubby and the others knelt in the snow, the first class was held on December 3, 1833. Caleb Mills was the first professor. He was just 26 years old. He remained with Wabash until his death 43 years later in 1876. Hubby was equally loyal. He served as a trustee for 45 years and was a faculty member for 43. He was also the treasurer and the school's chief fundraiser for more than 20 years. Our other professors stayed a long time, so that when the 75th anniversary of the college rolled around in 1907, the total number of faculty in the entire history of our college was fewer than 50. We now have about 75, I think. Being inspired by the courage of the founders and those who came after them in the 179-year history of the college, we as Wabash men today must courageously apply our liberal arts education for the common good of our college, of our families, of our communities, of our democracy, and of our civilization. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. The second attribute of the Wabash man is perseverance. It is related to courage, and the best way to capture Wabash perseverance is in the exhortation, Wabash always fights. A Wabash alumnus gave birth to that phrase at a pep rally in 1919. It immediately became popular with students and alumni and appeared regularly in The Bachelor, which at that time was published twice a week. The phrasing, Wabash always fights, was new in 1919, but its concept was as old as the school. Throughout our history, Wabash has had to persevere. One of the biggest enemies of a men's college is war. Many students left the college to fight in the Union in the Civil War, to fight for the Yanks in World War I, and to fight for the Allies in World War II. And in each war, the Wabash president promoted patriotism and faced the fact, the imminent threat, that the college could be a casualty of that war. The Civil War was especially harsh. Many students left to fight for the Union. The college had about 5 professors at that time, one of whom was the president. The president died unexpectedly in 1861. Wabash College persevered. World War I also caused the depletion of students. Athletics and the Bachelor virtually grounded to a halt. President McIntosh said that he would board up the school if necessary to help to defend the nation's cause for democracy. Wabash persevered then and again during World War II. Students left in droves, and President Sparks took a leave as president of Wabash to work for the United States government in Washington. Dean Kendall, who had served in World War I, became the acting president, and then he re-enlisted and worked for General MacArthur's staff. Professors such as Byron Trippett and Walter Furtick left for military service. Through the remarkable leadership of President Sparks, Wabash survived World War II. Wabash has also withstood the calls for co-education in the last 2 centuries and the challenge around 1900 that little colleges like ours would succumb to state universities which were expanding their enrollments at breathtaking rates. Today, our college, along with other small liberal arts independent colleges, faces tremendous challenges. Politicians, business interests, and others see higher education in terms of commerce. They minimize that education should develop character, advance society, and preserve and promote civilization. They attack the humanities. Wabash will have to overcome that challenge and persevere again. Wabash always fights also applies to each of us in our daily lives. And the world is full of people who do not think critically or act responsibly, lead effectively, or live humanely. This is not an easy fight for any Wabash man, you or me, or for the whole of the Wabash family. But it won't be easy, but we believe it will be worth it. A third attribute is our reverence and respect for our teachers. Great and revered professors and coaches have included many over the years. And I'll just mention a small smattering, deliberately leaving out any current faculty. And I'll just go through them quickly. The names may not mean anything to you personally, but they mean a lot to this college. And they're just a sampling. Caleb Mills, Jasper Cragwell, Norwood Brigance, Byron Trippett, Pete Vaughn, Ben Rogie, Willis Johnson, Jack Charles, Vic Powell, Eric Dean, Ted Bedrick, David Phillips, John Zimmerman, Rob Johnson, Gail Pepworth, Peter Frederick, John Fisher, and Bill Plaker. Examples are legion of Wabash men who have gratefully recalled the value of their teachers. Tom Marshall, class of 1873, governor of Indiana and vice president in the 8 critical years of the Woodrow Wilson administration, devoted several pages of his autobiography to his college days and teachers. Edward Price Bell, class of 1897, who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, paid homage especially to his English professor. For many years, starting in the 1920s, the editors of the yearbook would dedicate the book to a professor. This practice has been lost somewhere along the line, and it would be a good idea to renew it if it hasn't already been renewed. I'm going to read to you, with a bit of editing, what the students wrote about Professor Jasper Cragwell in the 1924 Wabash yearbook. The dedication reads as follows: To Jasper Cragwell, whose life, ideals, and service have aided so substantially in the development of Wabash character and spirit, we, the class of 1924, dedicate this volume of the Wabash. May it serve as our humble appreciation of Craggy, the grand old man of Wabash, the personal friend of every Wabash man, the devotee of fair play, and of his love, hope, and spirit instilled in Wabash. 77 years later, in 2001, the class of 1971, that's our class, had its 30th reunion. And our class gratefully remembers our professors at every reunion. At that reunion, my classmate Tom Martella, who was in those days a member of the Sphinx Club, addressed our class. And he reflected on his years at Wabash. And I'll read the few sentences that he said about the faculty of our era. About that time, the gym had just been renovated. He said, well, what it really boiled down for me was that the new gym is great, the campus is quaint, warm, and comfortable. Crawfordsville still appears to be the village that Time Forgot, and Center Hall is, well, Center Hall. And I wish I could spend an afternoon in biolab now that grades don't matter. And it would be lots of fun to sit in colloquium in the evenings with old and new important books. But nothing made it work so well as those guys that used to sit up there with their irritating questions and bemused smiles and conservative theories and eccentric ways and radical politics and their genuine affection for learning, for debate, and for their students. There's a whole history of Wabash students respecting and revering their professors. In my opinion, a Wabash man must appreciate and respect his teachers. Otherwise, he's just not a Wabash man. A fourth attribute is the eyeball-to-eyeball education we get here. We have honest, dead discourse. It is both blunt and respectful, although there are occasional lapses, more so now since email has been invented. But by and large, most of our conversation is honest, respectful, and eyeball to eyeball. And I want to give you a good example of that, and it comes from an address that Bill Plaker, class of 70, gave in 1976 to the boys who were attending honor scholarship. They would be the class of 1980. And the seniors here know Professor Plaker as one of the great professors of Wabash history. Tragically passed away in 2008. At the time he gave this speech, he was a relatively young professor on this campus, but his brilliance was already well established. And to the class of, or the prospective class of 1980, Bill Plaker said, as bluntly as he could say to people who were considering a college, if you know just what you want to do with your life, maybe you shouldn't come to Wabash. Our curriculum sets out to arouse your interest in subjects that you never considered before. If we succeed, your life will get more complicated. You'll find yourself facing some choices you hadn't expected. Here you'll make friends with new points of view. You'll encounter teachers dedicated to the business of asking hard questions. If you don't want the next 4 years of your life to affect you very much, perhaps you should look for a different college. He went on to say, although Wabash prepares her students for success in business, the professions, and service, it is much more than that. In the end, he said, one does not set off in search of the Holy Grail to learn map reading or the practical skills of horsemanship. One goes in search of a vision. Wabash has a vision. He said, Wabash can be a dangerous place, and it ought to be for those reasons. Of course, much of your life, he said, at college will be routine. Another day, another class, another paper. But I hope you also experience those moments when one mind rubs against another and both get sharpened. It's a beautiful expression by a beautiful man of our eyeball-to-eyeball education here. The fifth attribute is a gentleman's rule. If there's anything that American society desperately needs, is more men who are gentlemen and responsible citizens. We are not readily going to find them in the media or on the athletic field, in government, or over the broad expanse of American society. The gentleman's rule is not simply a rule of student conduct. It's a great moral principle. The current verbiage of the rule dates from the 40s. It predates the 40s, but the current verbiage is more or less what it is today. It recites that we must be gentlemen and responsible citizens on and off the campus. In my limited research, I'm not aware of any college that has a similar rule. Wabash could have said, as other schools have, that a student shall not lie, steal, or cheat. Well, neither a gentleman nor a responsible citizen should lie, steal, or cheat. So our rule is much broader than that. And our rule is not just limited to students. It talks about Wabash men. The gentleman rule is not limited to prohibitions. It embraces affirmative commands. Do as a gentleman does. Conduct yourself as a responsible citizen. Simply doing nothing and putting our lives on neutral does not make us a gentleman or a responsible citizen. Being mindless to the needs and aspirations of the people around us is not being a gentleman or a responsible citizen. The gentleman's rule instructs us, and it relates back to the founders, that the ultimate goal of a Wabash man is to be a man of good character, and it inspires us to always strive to reach that goal. You may not always reach it, but it's better to have a rule that is hard to obtain than to have low standards or no standards whatsoever. The sixth attribute of a Wabash man is that alumni and students help to recruit new students to Wabash. It's another aspect of Wabash life that we think maybe go on at other schools. Well, it doesn't. Two alumni have become Wabash presidents. George McIntosh, class of 1884, served as president from 1907 to 1926. He grew up in Nova Scotia. This was in the 19th century, and he was recruited by a Wabash student. The second alum who became president was Byron Trippett, who served as president from 1956 to 1965. He was recruited by alumni in his hometown of Princeton, Indiana. Today, many of us were recruited by a Wabash man. I was by my brother Pete, class of 1965. See, Pete, I got you into the speech. Why have so many Wabash students and alumni throughout the history of our college recruited students? Well, we believe in the values and the vision of Wabash College. The seventh attribute is our relationship to women. Someday I would like to write or speak on the subject of the great ladies of Wabash. But for now, I simply pass on my observation that throughout the history of Wabash, Wabash men have shown deep respect for women. I've known many myself over the years through alumni events and through college life. Without a doubt, the vast majority are highly intelligent, engaging, attractive, and fun, and always makes us wonder why they marry us or something. But by and large, it is a fact of a Wabash life that the women who are associated with Wabash are highly intelligent, engaging, attractive, and fun. At our last reunion, we had several wives there. Over 25 wives came to our reunion. And one of them said to me that this was like a reunion for her because she and some of her friends had been with our class for over 40 years as well. So while we're a college for men, we're Wabash men for women. The eighth attribute is that we're all part of a larger community. Claire McTurnan, in the class of 1910, was the president of the Indianapolis Wabash Association in 1924, and he wrote an essay. This was, again, 1924, and he said, Wabash College is essentially a college of spirit. Its atmosphere is one of serious purpose in which the administrative body, the faculty, the alumni, and the student body are joined in cooperative effort, made delightful by the undeniable power of its harmonious working parts. It is a college of men, a college in which the men are for it and for each other. All these quotes I've read to you today go back many years, but they're equally true today. We have a very strong Wabash spirit. And the 10th and last attribute is that a Wabash man must have fun and laugh. Think red seersucker suit. There is a rich history of clever humor here, although I haven't demonstrated it today. I have tried, but at any rate. But I can't give a lot of examples of this humor today because a lot of the humor comes in cartoons and song and verse, written essays, and oral histories. There has been a history of pranks at Wabash, some of which have revealed a deficiency in intelligence. It goes back at least to 1864. While the Civil War was raging, some students decided to play with squibs. Okay? Anybody know what a squib is? No, but we're about to find out. A squib was a type of blank cartridge, and students would stealthily put a match to the squib and discharge their weapons under their neighbor's door, setting off a blast. They had a motto, "Squib my neighbor." Well, back in 1864, there was no dean of students, so the faculty basically acted as the dean of students, and they put an end to that one. But there have been some very famous and clever and highly intelligent pranks at Wabash, and certainly the most famous one was the stealing of the Monon Bell in 1965. Wabash students bamboozled the DePaul administration to disclose the whereabouts of this sequestered Monon Bell and persuaded DePaul to award scholarships to little giants posing as foreign students. There has been a history of self-deprecating humor here as well, and this is healthy. I offered just two examples of self-deprecating humor. One is the homecoming queen contest, which I enjoy, usually. It pokes fun at ourselves. And the second example of self-deprecatory humor is The Bachelor. Although it's important that we laugh at ourselves, we have to laugh at DePaul. It won't be easy. No, it will be easy, and it will be worth it. I don't know when we first started poking fun at our friends at DePaul, but it's not new. About 100 years ago, the sports reporters for The Bachelor called the DePaul athletes the Sisters. As DePaul was a Methodist school, the word sisters was used in its ordinary meaning. Now they are called the Dannies, at least by my generation. And I have many DePaul friends. And I respect their accomplishments. And I'm going to give an aside here on a serious note. If you took all the DePaul alumni and all the Wabash alumni out of the history of Indiana, we would be probably a third world country. So I respect what a lot of the DePaul alums have done and overcome their education. But although I do respect their accomplishments, I cannot help but think that the Dannies of DePaul are to Wabash Men what the Washington Generals are to the Harlem Globetrotters. So I'm about to end, and please, no applause for me now because you already did it. I've already received my fair share of it. But instead, what I want you to do is to join me when I've concluded in a round of robust applause for our founders, for our Wabash values, for our devoted and caring teachers, coaches, alum and administrators, for the moral value of the gentleman's rule, for rubbing our brains together in eyeball-to-eyeball education, for the great ladies of Wabash, and for the fun and laughs we share. Living as a Wabash man is never easy, but is always worth it. So let us all robustly applaud that because we are all proudly Wabash men.
Thank you, John. Some announcements. Sphinx Club applications for juniors and seniors will be available in the Dean's office tomorrow. They are due at TGIF next Friday, September the 9th. The cross-country meet at Illinois Wesleyan this evening has been canceled. They will host their annual Hook'em Carom race this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Good luck to the Red Pack. The soccer team opens its season on Saturday at 2 p.m. against Trine University. This will also be the dedication of the new Mud Hollow Stadium and is game one of the second annual Robbie Dreher Classic. So please come and support your soccer team. TGIF is tomorrow at 4:15 at Beta. Please stand and sing Old Wabash.